The glass shattered against the wall 6 inches from my head. Please hit the like button and subscribe to support an old man's fight for what's right. I stood there, frozen, as red wine dripped down the cream-colored wallpaper of what used to be my living room. My daughter-in-law, Cassandra, stood in the doorway, her chest heaving, her perfectly manicured nails still curved from throwing my late wife's crystal wine glass. "You embarrassed me," she hissed, "in front of my friends, at my party." Her party. In my house. The house I'd built with my own hands 42 years ago, back when I still had the strength to swing a hammer all day. My son, Michael, stood behind her, eyes on the floor. He wouldn't look at me. Hadn't really looked at me. In the 3 years since he married her, I only asked if anyone wanted coffee, I said quietly. "You interrupted me," Cassandra snapped. "I was telling them about our trip to Napa, and you just barged in like some senile old man offering coffee. Do you have any idea how that made me look?" I did have an idea. I'd interrupted her story about the wine-tasting trip they'd taken with my money. The $10,000 I'd given them for Michael's business expansion. The business that never seemed to expand, but somehow funded their lifestyle upgrades. "I'm sorry," I said. "Sorry doesn't clean wine off the walls." She pulled out her phone. "But I know what will. Michael and I have been talking. It's time to make some changes around here." And that's when she showed me the document. Power of attorney, conservatorship papers, a nice letter from a doctor I'd never met, stating I was suffering from early-stage dementia and could no longer manage my own affairs. "You just need to sign here," Cassandra said, her voice suddenly sweet as poisoned honey. "We'll take care of everything." And found, we'll take care of everything. The bills, the house, your finances. You won't have to worry about anything. For your ND. Bye. Bye. I looked at Michael. Finally, he met my eyes. There was something there. Something that might have been shame, but it disappeared quickly. Repressen, since de lame wear. Michael Lida. 5 17 braided. But I was a Trude, and Lida Michael. But I looked at Michael live, and Lida Michael live. One said, "Dad, it's for the best," he mumbled. I had forgotten where I'd put my keys, because Cassandra had moved them while I was in the bathroom. I'd watched her do it through the reflection in the hallway mirror. It was the 3rd time, that month, she'd hidden something, and then pointed out my memory problems to Michael. "What if I don't sign?" I asked. Cassandra's smile disappeared. "Then we'll have to do this the hard way. Court proceedings. Medical evaluations. It'll be expensive, stressful, and you'll lose anyway. Why put yourself through that?" I felt the weight of my 68 years pressing down on me. I was tired. Ellen had been gone for 5 years. And some days I still reached for her side of the bed. Our daughter, Sarah, had died in a car accident when she was 23. Michael was all I had left, or so I thought. "I need to think about it," I said. "You have until Friday," Cassandra replied. "And Robert, if you tell anyone about this, if you try to fight us, I'll make sure everyone knows about your condition. Your friends at the VFW, the guys at the hardware store, everyone. I'll paint such a picture of a confused old man that no one will believe a word you say." She left, heels clicking on the hardwood floors. Michael lingered for a moment. "Dad, go," I said. "Just go." After they left, I sat in my recliner, Ellen's chair empty beside me, and I looked at the wine stain on the wall. I should clean it. Ellen would have cleaned it immediately, but I sat there, as the sun moved across the room, as the shadows grew longer, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to fight them. I was going to destroy them. Thursday morning, I called Cassandra. "I'll sign," I said. "Tomorrow. But I want to do it right. Let me make dinner. Have the family together one last time before everything changes. Please." There was a pause. I could almost hear her calculating, weighing the risks. "Fine," she said. "But no games. Robert. Just dinner, signatures, and we move forward. No games." I agreed. That afternoon, I went shopping. I bought a beautiful prime rib, fresh vegetables, the ingredients for Ellen's famous chocolate cake. The young cashier, Emma, who'd been ringing up my groceries for 3 years, smiled at me. Special occasion, Mr. Thornton? You could say that, I replied. What I didn't tell her was that I'd also stopped by the office of Thomas Chen, the attorney who'd handled Ellen's estate. And before that, I'd made a call to an old friend from my days as a senior fraud investigator for the IRS. 30 years I'd spent tracking down people who thought they were smarter than the system. People who manipulated numbers, hid assets, and preyed on the vulnerable. People exactly like my daughter-in-law, because that's what Cassandra didn't know. When she looked at me, she saw a lonely old man, a retired government pencil pusher, who spent his days watching TV and forgetting where he put things. She had no idea that for 3 decades, I'd been the person they called when the case was too complex, when the fraud was too sophisticated, when someone needed to find money that didn't want to be found. Old habits die hard, and when someone tries to steal from you, well, you tend to notice the patterns. Friday evening arrived. I'd spent the day cooking, and the house smelled like it used to when Ellen was alive. The prime rib was perfect, the potatoes were roasted with rosemary, and the chocolate cake sat cooling on the counter. Michael and Cassandra arrived at 6 sharp. She was dressed like she was going to a country club, not her father-in-law's house. Michael wore the expensive watch I'd bought him for his 40th birthday, the one Cassandra had picked out. Something smells amazing, Michael said. And for a moment, he sounded like my son again. Your mother's recipes, I said. Thought we should do this right. Cassandra's eyes swept the dining room. I'd set the table with Ellen's good china, the set that had been her grandmother's. Cassandra had asked about it once, wondering when it would be passed down. I'd told her it was promised to Sarah's daughter. If Sarah had lived to have children, Cassandra hadn't asked again. Where are the papers? She asked. After dinner, I said. Let's eat first. I could see her jaw tighten, but she sat down. Michael helped me bring out the food. And for a few minutes, it was almost normal. Almost like before Cassandra. Before the manipulation. Before I'd become an obstacle instead of a father. This is delicious, Dad, Michael said. I forgot how good your cooking is. Your mother taught me everything, I replied. She always said that taking care of people you love is the most important thing you can do. Cassandra's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Something in my tone made her look up, but I was just a smiling old man serving dinner. So, Robert, she said, her voice carefully pleasant. After tonight, Michael and I were thinking we might look at selling this place. It's too big for one person, and the market is excellent right now. Sell my house? I asked. Well, it would be our house. Once you sign the papers, she corrected. But don't worry, we'd find you a lovely assisted living facility. They have activities, people your own age. You'd probably be happier. Michael said nothing. He cut his meat into smaller and smaller pieces, not eating. That's very thoughtful, I said. How much do you think the house is worth? Cassandra brightened. She loved talking about money, especially money that was about to become hers. The realtor said probably $850,000, maybe $900 if we stage it right. I nodded slowly. That's interesting, because I had it appraised last year at just over $1 million. But then, property values do fluctuate. $1 million? Cassandra's eyes glittered. Well, even better. Of course, the mortgage would need to be paid off first, I continued. Mortgage? Michael looked up. Dad, you paid off the house 20 years ago. You told me. I took out a reverse mortgage, I said. 3 years ago. Needed the money for various things. This was a lie. But Cassandra didn't know that. How much? She asked sharply. Oh, about $400,000 by now, with the interest and fees. You know how those things accumulate. I watched her calculate. Watched her realize that her nearly $1 million windfall had just been cut in half. But she recovered quickly, plastering on a smile. Well, that's still a substantial amount, she said. We'll manage it. I'm sure you will. I agreed. You've always been good with money. Other people's money. Especially. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. What's that supposed to mean? Cassandra's voice was ice. Nothing, I said mildly. Just an observation. You and Michael have been very creative with the funds I've given you over the years. Dad, Michael warned. The business loan, the car emergency, the medical bills. I continued, counting on my fingers. Let's see. That's $67,000 over the past 3 years, not counting the smaller amounts. I kept track. Old habit from my IRS days. Cassandra stood up. I think it's time for you to sign those papers. I think it's time for you to meet someone, I said. I stood and walked to the front door. When I opened it, Thomas Chen stepped inside, the briefcase in hand. Behind him was Detective Sarah Morrison from the Financial Crimes Unit. What the hell is this? Cassandra demanded. This is called due diligence, I replied. You see, when someone tries to defraud an elderly person, certain red flags go up. Forged medical documents, for instance. Thomas placed a folder on the table. Dr. Gerald Simmons, the physician who supposedly diagnosed Mr. Thornton with dementia, died 6 years ago. Yet somehow, he evaluated Mr. Thornton last month. Cassandra's face went white. Then there's the more interesting part, Detective Morrison said. When Mr. Thornton came to us with concerns about financial manipulation, we started looking into your background. Mrs. Thornton. Turns out, this isn't your first rodeo. She opened her own folder. Cassandra Marie Winters, also known as Cassie Harrison, also known as Sandra Mitchell. 3 previous marriages. 2 ended in settlements after claims of elder abuse. 1 ended when the gentleman in question died under suspicious circumstances. That investigation is being reopened. By the way, Michael stood up so fast his chair fell over. What? But that's not even the best part, I said. I was enjoying this now, I'll admit. 30 years of investigation work, and this was the most personal case I'd ever worked. I pulled out my own folder. Bank statements, transfer records, screenshots of social media posts. Remember that business loan, Michael? The $20,000 for expanding your graphic design business? He nodded, looking sick. Cassandra deposited it into an account under her maiden name. Then she withdrew it in cash over the next 3 months. I have the bank records. Your business never saw a penny. The car emergency? I continued. The $8,000 for transmission repair? There was no transmission problem. I called the shop. They've never heard of you. The medical bills? I looked at Cassandra. For your mother's cancer treatment? Your mother died in 2003. I found her obituary. Michael turned to his wife. Cass? He's lying, she spat. I have recordings, I said quietly. Every conversation we've had for the past 2 months, including the one where you told your friend Diana that you'd be rid of the old bastard by the end of the year. You were quite explicit about your plans to sell the house and move to Costa Rica. The doorbell rang. I answered it. FBI agent Marcus Webb stood there with 2 other agents. Mr. Thornton? We'd like to ask Mrs. Cassandra Thornton some questions about the offshore accounts we discussed. It turned out that Cassandra had been even busier than I'd thought. The money she'd stolen from me was nothing compared to what she'd taken from her previous victims. She'd been running a sophisticated elder fraud scheme, targeting wealthy widowers, marrying them or their sons, then systematically draining their assets. The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands held over $2 million. As they led Cassandra out in handcuffs, she screamed at me. You vindictive old bastard. You've ruined everything. No, I said calmly. You did that yourself. I just kept records. Michael stood in the wreckage of his marriage, his life, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. Dad, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know about the other men, about the money. But you knew about me, I said. You stood there while she threw a glass at my head. You said nothing when she called me senile. You were willing to sign papers to take away my home, my independence. Everything your mother and I built. I thought I loved her, he whispered. Love is what your mother and I had, I replied. What you had was infatuation, with someone who saw dollar signs when she looked at you. And you were too weak to see it. He flinched like I'd slapped him. But, I continued, my voice softer, you're still my son, and I remember the boy who used to help me build this house, who held your mother's hand when she was sick, who cried at Sarah's funeral like his heart was breaking. That boy is still in there somewhere. What do I do now? Michael asked. You start over, I said. You get a good lawyer. You cooperate with the investigation. And you rebuild your life. But you do it honestly. And you do it on your own. No more handouts. No more shortcuts. And us? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. He'd lost weight. There were lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed before. He looked older than 38. That depends on you, I said. I'm your father. I'll always be your father. But trust? Respect? Those things you have to earn back. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, Dad. I know, I said. Now get out of my house. When you're ready to be the man your mother raised, you know where to find me. After everyone left, after the statements were given and the reports were filed, I sat in my recliner and looked at Ellen's empty chair. I did it, Elle, I said to the silence. I protected what we built. I protected myself. And maybe, just maybe, I saved our son. The wine stain was still on the wall. I'd clean it tomorrow. Tonight, I was tired, but it was a good tired, the kind that comes from fighting the right fight. Thomas Chen called me the next morning. The DA wants to know if you'll testify. This could be a major case. They're finding more victims, more accounts. Cassandra might have stolen over $5 million. I'll testify, I said. Every word, every document, everything I have. You know, Thomas said, most people your age would have just signed the papers, avoided the conflict. Why fight? I thought about that. Because my wife spent 43 years teaching me that you don't let bullies win. Because I have skills that most people don't, and I can use them. And because I'm 68 years old, and I'll be damned if I spend whatever time I have left being afraid in my own home. The trial took 6 months. Cassandra's lawyer tried everything, claiming I was a vindictive ex-father-in-law, that I'd fabricated evidence, that my age made me an unreliable witness. But I'd spent 30 years in courtrooms. I knew how to present evidence. I knew how to stay calm under cross-examination. And most importantly, I had the truth. When the jury came back with guilty verdicts on all counts, fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy, money laundering, Cassandra was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Michael sat in the courtroom every day. He didn't speak to me, didn't approach me, but he was there. On the day of sentencing, he waited outside. Dad? I stopped. I've been going to therapy, he said, trying to understand how I let this happen. How I failed you. And? I was scared, he said simply. After Mom died, after Sarah, I was so scared of being alone that I latched on to the first person who paid attention to me. And then I was too proud to admit I'd made a mistake. Pride's a dangerous thing, I said. I know that now. He took a deep breath. I got a job. Graphic design, like I always wanted. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work. And I got my own apartment. No help, no handouts. I'm doing it right this time. Good, I said. Do you think? He hesitated. Do you think maybe we could have dinner sometime? Just dinner. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I miss my dad. I looked at my son. He looked healthier than he had in years. The lines of stress were fading. He stood straighter. Your mother used to make pot roast on Sundays, I said. I never could get it quite right, but I keep trying. His face lit up. This Sunday? This Sunday, I agreed. And Michael, bring your appetite. We have a lot to talk about. That was 2 years ago. Michael comes for dinner every Sunday now. We don't talk about Cassandra. We talk about his work, his clients, the house he's saving up for. Sometimes we talk about Ellen, about Sarah, about the family we used to be. Last month, he brought a woman with him, Emily, a teacher he'd met at a coffee shop. She was kind, asked good questions, and laughed at my bad jokes. When she helped me clear the table, she reminded me a little of Ellen. After they left, I sat in my recliner and smiled. The wine stain was long gone, painted over, and forgotten. The house was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet. My phone rang. Thomas Chen. Robert, I have someone who wants to talk to you. His name is George Patterson. His son married a woman named Victoria Summers 6 months ago, and he's starting to see some red flags. Financial requests. Medical documentation that doesn't add up. He saw the news coverage of Cassandra's trial and wondered if you might be willing to talk to him. I thought about it. I thought about George Patterson, alone and scared, watching his son slip away. I thought about Cassandra and the other predators out there, circling vulnerable people like sharks. Give him my number, I said. 3 months later, I helped George gather enough evidence to stop Victoria before she could drain his accounts. The DA added her to a growing list of elder fraud cases. George and his son are rebuilding their relationship now, just like Michael and I did. Word spread. Other families reached out. I started working with the police department as a consultant, teaching them the patterns to look for, the red flags, the investigative techniques I'd developed over 30 years. Last week, the local senior center asked me to give a talk about protecting yourself from financial exploitation. 73 people showed up, 73 elderly people who were scared, who were being pressured by family members, who needed to know they weren't powerless. I stood at the podium and told them my story. I showed them the wine-stained photograph, the forged documents, the evidence I'd collected. I showed them that being old doesn't mean being helpless. The most dangerous thing you can do, I told them, is stay silent. The second most dangerous thing is act out of anger. What you need is patience, evidence, and the willingness to protect yourself. Afterward, an elderly woman named Margaret approached me. Her grandson was pressuring her to sign over her house. She had the same look in her eyes that I'd had that day Cassandra threw the wine glass. "What do I do?" she asked. I gave her Thomas Chen's card. "You fight smart," I said, "and you remember that you didn't survive this long by being stupid. Trust your instincts. Tonight, I'm sitting in my recliner. Ellen's chair beside me. Michael is coming for dinner tomorrow. We're trying Ellen's lasagna recipe this time." My phone buzzes. Another referral from Thomas. Another family in trouble. Quote, "I'm 68 years old. I'm tired sometimes. My knees hurt when it rains. I forget where I put my keys occasionally, usually because I actually forgot, not because someone moved them. But I'm not helpless. I'm not a victim." That's what Cassandra never understood. She looked at me and saw an easy target. A lonely old man who would do anything to keep his son close. She never saw the investigator, the man who'd spent decades hunting people exactly like her. She thought patience was weakness. She thought silence was surrender. She was wrong, and that made all the difference.